Blackbird matched John's conspiratorial tone, leaned in and said, John, we're waiting for Blackbeard to calm down and forget about us. Waiting here? How could John get his mom home if they were stuck here in this cove? His fallback plan to get into the academy didn't seem much better considering the entrance requirements. John felt boarding school was closing in on him. Anger and frustration made him mutter for him to forget. Waiting for him! Waiting for him! The bird parroted, loud enough to draw attention of the eating pirates. Not waiting for him, Blackbird corrected his parrot. We're waiting for him to forget. Give it let's say a month. Blackbird looked around casually, like he assumed everyone would agree with his plan. Did he forget last time? John asked, louder than he meant to. Blackbird stood quickly, looking away from John. Blackbird, we have to do something, John pressed. Not just sit here waiting for Blackbeard to forget about us. He looked around the table for support, but the pirates all glanced away. Suddenly, they were pretending that they hadn't been listening to the entire conversation. John huffed in frustration, and he left the captain's quarters. He climbed the ladder to the quarterdeck to find Mr. Owens standing watch. Where's my mom? John asked. Oh, she be ashore. Mr. Owens scratched his chin. What? Where? John ran to the rail, and he scanned the cove. He spotted a rowboat on a nearby beach. Is the other boat going? Our one boat be all we have, Mr. Owen said. John glanced around the deck and saw it was true. There weren't any other boats. I'll swim then, John said. Swim? Matey, that be a fool idea in your head, Mr. Owen said. It's not that far, and I'm a very strong swimmer. John kicked off his Converse. They would only get heavy and slow him down in the water. Nay, lad, ye mom spoke clear. Ye are to stay on the ship. Mr. Owens put his hands on his hips, and he stared at John. John, however, quickly clambered atop the railing and cannonballed over the side of the ship into the pale green Caribbean waters. He had taken swimming lessons since he was 3, and he felt like a natural in the water, just like he did swinging around on the playground equipment. The water was warm and calm, placid even. John used a crawl stroke and crossed the shore. It only took a handful of strokes to travel far enough from the ship that he could stand in waist-deep water. His pajamas were dripping wet, and the morning breeze put a slight chill to him. He looked down and he spied several crabs scattering along under his feet by the waves. The sharp-looking claws made John start to regret not wearing his shoes. He reached the sandy beach where he nearly stepped on a turtle that was scrambling the other way. The turtle seemed just as surprised to see John. Then the two of them just stared at each other for a few moments before the turtle started snapping its beak at John. Definitely should have brought my shoes, he said. While there was nobody at the beach rowboat, John did see what looked like some footprints leading inland. Mom! John called out. Mom! He was following the trail. The bottoms of his feet were soft from the swim, and the dirt was hard against them. John didn't think he could travel very far barefoot. It's not like I have only one pair of shoes, he realized. So he peeled off the eye patch, and he was back in his bedroom. His pajamas dripping seawater onto a hard floor. The first shades of gray marked the coming dawn. He quickly peeled out of his pajamas, and he tossed them in the clothing hamper. He dried off with a bathrobe, which also went into the clothing hamper. And then he dressed again in his pirate costume. With his Converse being left on the Dragon of Plunder, John slipped on his blue rubber Crocs, and he pulled the eye patch back on. Much better, John thought as he bounced into the Crocs, glad to have his feet now protected from the hard Bohemian soil. He followed the trail of footprints inland. Palm trees gave way to gnarled tree branches of what his mom had called trees of life. Is this the kind of island that has jaguars? He thought. He grabbed the first weighty rock he found and held it for protection. He was almost as tall as his mom, and he figured he might be as lethal with a rock as the story about his mom. The footprints ended at a freshwater pool. John didn't hesitate to wade into the pool. His Crocs were made for situations just like this. He could step on rocks, shells, or any number of things in the bottom of the pools without injuring his feet. He wasn't even worried about crab claws anymore, not with these. He scooped water in his hands and he held it up to take a sip. It was brackish and salty, not as fresh as he thought. He spit it out. While not as salty as seawater, it wasn't good for drinking. He turned in small circles and inspected the edge of the pool for footsteps leading out. Something in the water glinted in the sunlight. John rolled up his pant legs so he could cross the deepest part of the pool without getting them wet. A bottle! He found a bottle and there was something in it. John rolled up his shirt sleeves and he reached into the water. He grabbed the bottle and pulled it out. There was a piece of paper curled inside. He had found a message in a bottle. John splashed back to shore and sat in the dry dirt. He carefully took the cork out of the bottle and he pulled the paper out. It was heavier than paper he was used to. This must be what they call parchment paper, he thought. He unrolled the paper and he was surprised to see that the letter was written in English. To whoever finds this letter, I seem to have been transported through time. I'm not trapped. I'm marooned on an island. My hope is that someone will find me and give me a chance to rediscover the chest that brought me here. Boom! John looked up from the letter. A cannon, but from where? He looked around and listened. Boom! Again. He was ready for this one and instantly knew it had come from the beach. Oh no, he thought. John stuffed the partially read letter back into the bottle and he corked it. He started running towards the beach. If the Dragon of Plunder set sail, he would be trapped on the island, marooned. And if all the water was as brackish as the pool, he'd be forced to return home and he'd be unable to help his mom. He burst from the underbrush and onto the sandy beach. He skidded to a halt. Queen Anne's Revenge had blocked the mouth of the sheltered cove. John glanced up and down the beach, but he couldn't see the rowboat anywhere. He squinted at the ships, wishing he didn't have an eye patch blocking half his vision. There it was, the rowboat! He was about to yell out for his mom when he realized she wasn't alone in the boat. There were two pirates with her. One of them had a gun, and it was aimed at her. The Dragon of Plunder was blockaded. His mom was captured. A twig broke in the bush behind him. He turned. Hello there, a raspy pirate voice said from behind him. John panicked. He was caught, with nothing else to do and no other choice. He took off the eye patch.